You're listening to The Artist Athlete, episode 25. This podcast is dedicated to Circus. It's a place for professionals to share their stories, viewpoints, and information, and a place for outsiders to get a sneak peek into our world. Hey friends, fans, and enemies. I'm Shannon McKenna, and I'm the host of the Artist Athlete podcast and the founder of theartistathlete.com. The podcast is funded in part by listeners just like you through the website patreon.com, which is kind of like Kickstarter, except you give smaller amounts on an ongoing basis. If you like what you're listening to and you want to keep the podcast going, go to patreon.com/theartistathlete. You can give as little as $1, but if you give $5, I'll give you early access to episodes and send you a special podcast sticker. And if you give $30, I will personally Skype you up and let you record your own message to be played at the end of every episode. This week, I got to call up Erica in St. Louis. And despite our crappy internet connection, we got in a little conversation. Here's part of it.
How's it going, Erica? Are you a teacher?
I teach pre-K to 5th grade performing arts.
That's amazing. And are you also an aerialist?
Yes, I would consider myself an aerialist. Yes. I train in St. Louis, Missouri, America. And there are 2 studios that I train at here. One is Bumbershoot Aerial Arts. The other one just opened up less than a month ago. It's St. Louis Aerial Collective.
Well, thank you so much again for being a Patreon. I so appreciate it.
Of course.
It's amazing.
Thanks for talking to me. It's really awesome and kind of like weird because you're awesome.
Bye, Erica.
Bye.
Oh, Erica. Flattery will get you everywhere. Stay tuned for Erica's message at the end of this and every episode. And if you want to talk to me and record your own message, go to patreon.com/theartistathlete to become a Patreon today. Today's episode is super special because I actually have 2 guests for one interview, Etienne and Leah, who make up the comedy acrobatic duo ACROBATRIX. Bending, flipping, and flying through the air, they create and perform shows that are action-packed from start to finish. They have received standing ovations performing at festivals, Renaissance fairs, colleges, and cruise ships all over the world. Here's my interview with ACROBATRIX. Welcome to the show, Etienne and Leah.
Hi,
Hello.
We're happy to be here.
Yay! And you make up the duo ACROBATRIX.
ACROBATRIX.
Correct.
That's correct. Well, the original name was Vicious and Delicious. Our very first contract was at a Renaissance fair, and before that we did the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. But when we were going to switch to do cruise ships afterwards, they said they thought that name was too raunchy.
And another
I can see that.
downside, another downside to Vicious and Delicious is that it starts with a V, and oftentimes when you're doing festivals, you're listed in alphabetical order.
So we discovered this really quickly at Edinburgh was that we were like down there on the bottom. But when we switched it to ACROBATRIX,
At AC.
we
also wanted
number 1, baby, number 1.
We also wanted a name that was descriptive. It said, ACROBATRIX. It's pretty quickly realized that
Yeah.
there's circus of some type.
Who knows
acrobats.
what Vicious and Delicious is?
Right.
And then the other thing is also, and this is like a deep cut here, is it references also the Asterix and Obelix comic books that I used to read as a kid in France. So there you go.
That is a deep cut.
Yeah.
Super deep.
All right. We could have anyway.
We could have named it something that was a little easier to pronounce off of first glance. Like, it often does get slightly mispronounced.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome ACROBATRIX.
And we're like, but it's fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
We're stuck with it. Here we are.
No, it's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So take me back to the very beginning.
Many ages ago,
Yeah,
when
right.
this ancient planet
Etienne,
was
you
not
have like a
so
very
ancient.
long history
Yeah, I do.
as a circus artist.
Yes, because back to Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey in 1996.
96.
Yeah. But we're going to fast forward to 5 years ago.
Yes.
San Francisco.
We met in 2012. I feel like a lot of how we started was based on a lot of things kind of all lining up at the same time. I was in San Francisco studying at the San Francisco Center for Circus Arts doing the clown program there, the Clown Conservatory.
And I was there because I'd spent the past few years with a solo juggling rollerbola unicycle show, and I had been on cruise ships pretty much constantly for 4 years and had just gotten completely burned out from it. Yeah. When I remember very clearly one time I was sitting on just this pristine beach in Grand Turk, which is just it's a paradise. It's beautiful. The people are wonderful. They're very poor. I would do little street shows for the kids and then hand them sandwiches. And I remember there was one time I was there and I was just sitting there. I said to myself, God, I hate this place. And that was like this moment where I just was like, it's not this place, buddy. It's you. Get out. You know, it's like if you don't love what you're doing and don't appreciate this, I guarantee you, there is a ton of people that would, and open the door to them and you go take care of yourself. So then I went to, San Francisco Circus Center to kind of, to just, of all the places to go to like, go on a retreat or sabbatical, that's where I went.
Well, it worked out well.
Yeah.
And what brought you to go to clown college?
I started doing theater when I was a kid, and then I grew up doing youth circus at the Actors Gymnasium in Chicago, where I grew up. And then I went to École Nationale de Cirque to do their summer intensive program, and I did that for 5 years in a row. So I got really integrated in professional circus, professional training circus, and how to kind of merge those two into a lifestyle, per se, where it was a goal that I wanted to perform full-time and work full-time. And the clown program that Dan Griffiths and Joe Diefenbacher were offering that year really fit in with what I wanted to do. And I applied and I got into there.
So when we were there, like, we would see each other in passing. Like, I was doing handstands with Lou Yi. I was doing my 5-cylinder rollerbola and stuff.
And you lived with a bunch of
with
my schoolmates.
With a couple of her classmates. Because there at the time was a place called the Clown House. It was a little bit of a dump, but it was our dump. We had this guy Frank living literally in the cupboard, in the kitchen.
That's such a San Francisco story.
Yes.
I know. It's
was very
it's either Harry Potter or San Francisco.
Yeah, at the time I was looking to audition for École Nationale de Cirque's full program, and once I learned that was not in the cards for me because they didn't want funny circus artists, I kind of came up to Etienne and we would like met at a party or something like that, and we also, like, at that time I was also just starting to play around with partner acrobatics. And I wanted to learn to juggle.
And so we were like, oh, let's, so we just kind of started to, she was the right size for a flyer first, because I'm not some 6'2" Bulgarian, 212 pounds. That's not me.
And you were even smaller.
Yeah, I was even smaller back then. I was a skinny juggler. So we just said, oh, okay, let's just, just play around a little bit. And then one day I just kind of on a whim said, hey, do you want to come share my slots at Pier 39 and we'll do a little duo show.
And I found a costume that like matched his.
Yeah.
Like mirrored his. So
yeah, like the colors. I was wearing blue, black, and yellow at the time, and
you still do?
Those are still our colors.
We still do. Yeah, and we did these shows where basically I would do a bit, and then we would kind of do a partner thing. We'd wing it, and then it was like, okay, now's your solo, and I just kind of sat there, and she would like look over at me like, save me. I'm like, no.
And I would just, it was great. It was perfect because I started.
What would you do?
I studied contortion. Contortion was my main discipline, and has been my main discipline for my circus career so far.
But I think what was funny was that, like, and this is a really good example when she was like, they're like flailing, and she's like, save me. I'm like, it's all you. Is that from the very beginning, Leah was never my assistant.
Yeah.
Like, you always see, like, with someone who's experienced or whatever, and they get a new partner, that partner is immediately a second class citizen in some way. And it was just like, nope, you're a partner now.
Because you never treated me like your assistant.
Yeah.
I never took a back seat in my responsibilities in the duo, which always made me feel needed. I was always able to feel like I had just as much of my skin in the game as he does.
So we did this first show, And don't get me wrong, it was a terrible show. I think we've got our very second show on video, and that might be slightly better, and that is an awful show.
Are you selling that anywhere?
No,
No.
that is not for sale.
That might be.
Maybe it'll be a bonus feature.
On volume
we've
3.
talked about.
Actually, that's a good idea. But anyway,
You're welcome. I'll take 15%.
Okay. So
send
let
you
me
a
just
copy.
give you your $7 now. And
So you guys are the first duo I've had, and the first people who, instead of having the traditional circus act that would be plugged into a show, have your own show. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between that, what it's like to sell that?
it's different. The difference is huge. Like, the origin of this really is my background as a street performer. I brought that to the game.
I come to it with a background from my parents being professional magicians, and in magic, everyone has their own show. You're able to do your own 45-minute routine. And sure, you probably have another act or so that you can plug into a larger cabaret show.
Can I just stop you and ask you, what was that
Sorry, I just
childhood? Seriously.
It was
magical.
It was how many rabbits did you have to feed?
Only one dove. Okay. No rabbits.
Okay.
Yeah, but that dove is down the basement, and it's
Loud.
just loud and cooing, and
Yeah,
and
so-
it's just like, I'm horny.
So it was really important to both of my parents that they were able to communicate and teach me how being a professional entertainer means that it's your full-time job on the days you like it and on the days you don't. And most of my childhood and my relationship with my parents was just them working in the office downstairs together. My dad had an entire basement office where he'd sit at his computer most of the day. He's a very creative person, but he's a very business-minded person, and he understands that marketing and promotion and business is more important than the show itself. And he always taught that to me. So as I was growing up, and as I was putting that through the lens of circus, having a full show or having a concept of a full show that you market and promote and produce yourself wasn't foreign.
For me, it's also like when I did things like Ringling Brothers and stuff like that, I honestly hated that show and hated being part of just that giant machine where I had very little say. And especially when you're a first of May and when you're new, you just get kicked around and you just get kicked around constantly. And
First of May means
you're a newbie. You're
means you may not know what the term First of May means.
Right. And it's things like, and I was one of the clowns, and some of those guys would just play pranks on you, and I'm making air quotes about that. It was this kind of hazing that when I left there, I kind of, I really just wanted to do my own thing, and street performing was kind of the venue into that.
Being in control of your own show is different than just being an act that comes in to a fuller show. It requires a lot more decision making, and these are decisions that could change the direction of your career. Whether that means, how are we getting from this gig to that gig? We have complete responsibility of getting ourselves there, setting up, tearing down, all of these things that a crew would do for you.
And it's also the thing is like on some of the circuits that we are on, there's other people doing the same thing, and your success or the level of your success, it doesn't have to do with your show. It's things like how well you connect with your fan base. We have to nurture our own fan base.
Yeah.
Whereas if we were like with Cirque du Soleil has they've got an entire wing of the building to nurture the fan base.
Interesting.
And so you have to, as an independent artist, you have to grow your own audience. You have to find your audience and build upon that.
How do you do that?
I mean, the social media is the quick answer. That's how we've really been able to grow our fan base. But a lot of what we do is Renaissance festivals, where the festival themselves is filling the house. We're not making those people buy a ticket to come see us. They're coming to the festival, and we are one of the many shows they could see. It's their decision of what they see during the day.
But also,
and it's my responsibility to remind them, hey, come see us.
Well, also now at this point, because we've been at some of these fairs, we're a perennial act. This will be like our 5th season. So people have seen us. They are buying a ticket specifically to come see us because they've watched over the 5 years, they've watched us grow and grow and grow. They've watched our tricks get harder. They've watched our jokes get just more tighter. They've watched the characters get more profound.
And they've watched us train during the year through our Instagram stories or our posts. And then they come to see our show and they go, oh my gosh, they're doing that trick that I saw them mess up in that video.
Nice.
And that creates this sort of personal connection that you can't achieve when you go to see a Cirque du Soleil show. And that's really what I love about what we do. Just to talk a little bit about the style of show that we do, because I think that's really important to understand if you don't know who we are or you haven't seen our work. We do a 45-minute long, multidisciplinary circus show where our two characters are talking the entire time. We don't do anything to music. We don't have any silent acts. It's all character-based comedy humor while we're doing our tricks.
Like, for example, like, if you see a hand-to-hand duo, a typical one, I mean, it's to music, and between the tricks, they fill it out with, like, sexy dance. Well, for us, we fill it out with jokes.
And where does that script writing come from, or where do those jokes come from?
Ding, ding.
You write the scripts.
I write the scripts.
And you say the words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Etienne is or what I refer to as our head joke writer. He's the one that spends time researching and writing and tweaking and deciding what directions our show goes in terms of humor. But he's constantly coming back to me, and we're working together.
Yeah,
and
it's
reading
like,
things out loud.
It's not in a vacuum, like where
No.
I go into like a basement and like write 45 pages of jokes and then be like, here is your material, and you will say it this way.
Yeah, no. I mean, it feels very collaborative, and I do feel like if there's anything that I don't like or I want to change, I bring it up and we talk about it and we make it work.
There's a joke that we have in our show that's 5 years old that it still gets a laugh, but the culture is changing, so it's not aging well. So
interesting.
So it's like, okay, we need
and
to.
we're feeling it change, and
Yeah, we're like, okay, we need to take this out. And then there's other things like we performed in Texas earlier this year, and there was this moment where we were doing a build up to a big trick where we would say in the show, we'd say it's the faith that we have in each other that makes everything possible. Well, in Texas, where you can't spit and not hit a church, to say the word faith just kind of fried their brains
it's a
little bit.
buzzword in their heads so differently than in New York.
They didn't know what to do with it, so we had to change it to it's the trust that we have in each other, and then suddenly everything flowed smoothly,
and it made sense.
And it's these little tweaks like that.
And when you do comedy or you do theater, you start to develop this sense of being aware of how the audience is feeling as the show goes on. And when you say a line that doesn't go as well as you want, or it gets a less of a laugh or a different kind of laugh, or the laugh is a little late because people had to think about it first, and being able to be in constant awareness of your audience is its own skill.
And you have to really be with them. It's like, it's like a tennis match where when you volley out the ball, you got to wait for them to ping it back. Because if you swing too soon, you're just going to miss it. And then, it's like, and that kind of a thing. And
you talk about this with script, and I'm interested if you also think of that the same way when you're thinking of your tricks.
If Etienne does more of the joke writing, I do a little bit more of the choreography or deciding where the tricks go. And a lot of that I feel like has to do with what the stage picture is, how it's changing.
What do you mean by stage picture?
So when you're looking at the stage, are we standing on either side? Like, is he on one side and I'm on the other side, and we're doing lines back and forth, and then I run at him and he picks me up and we do a trick, and now I'm on top of his shoulders, and then now we're doing lines vertically. It's a vertical, thing. And then I get off his shoulders and he lies down on the table and I get on top of him and we do an Icarian routine, and that's very different visually.
Yeah, that the rhythms change, and that it's things like
visually it really switches up.
And do you change that depending on where your audience is? Like, do some tricks play better in Texas than they do in Montana?
We change it more based on physical limitations like ceiling height or stage width. We have 2 different 45-minute long shows, and one of the shows has all of our higher risk skills in it. We call it our harder show, just because it requires more. It
has a lot of more like hardcore,
high level acro.
A lot of release moves. There's a lot of flips.
Things that do involve more risk. Where our other show, we can do it on a moving cruise ship.
Yeah,
on a rocky day, and we know that we'll be safe.
At this point, both of them are really solid. Where we can walk into a theater tired, take a few sips of coffee, run through the whole show in tech, go backstage, take a few more sips of coffee and go out there and kill it. But it's taken 5 years to get to that.
And when we were growing and as we were growing, we needed to be able to have routines that we can do on very little sleep, or if it's raining, or if it's really, really hot.
We just found out that we can do our hard show in the rain.
Yeah.
We can.
That's
congratulations.
It was this weird day, and like the audience was there. They stayed, like all of them, and they were getting rained on too. And we were and then as we were going through, we were like checking in, like, do you think we can do this? We're like, yeah. And we just did the whole show, and it was amazing.
It was a steady rain. Like, it wasn't pouring, but everybody was wet, including us and all of our props.
That was a level that we didn't even know we had achieved that, and we're like, okay, man, that's a level of surety.
And when you get to that level, do you then feel like you need to level up? Or are you
depends on our
good?
Goals and what we're doing.
I mean, we're already writing show number 3 right now.
Okay.
I mean, so you're always looking to change it up, level it up, and leveling up doesn't necessarily mean adding, like, bigger, harder tricks.
Right.
And
we created show 2 because we really needed higher level tricks, and we didn't want to totally scrap what we already created because it was good.
It's really strong.
We really liked show 1. We liked what we first created, but when we were in our 3rd year of being together, and we were both getting better acrobatic-wise, like technical skill-wise, we wanted to create something that was next level, that was a whole new level of Icarian games and partner acrobatics, plus a whole new level of comedy, romantic humor, and jokes.
Honestly, the first show really grew out of, like, the origin of it was me just deconstructing my street show. Mm-hmm. And then just kind of rewriting it, and in a sense it feels very streety.
And then the humor is more juvenile, like it's
more. I wouldn't say juvenile; it's just more direct.
What's your favorite joke in the first show?
I know what mine is, and it's really stupid.
Which one?
It's the pocket knife.
I like that one.
It's really a dumb joke, and I love it. Okay, so what? It's so stupid. So we have these characters, Thunder and Star. It's
right. And Etienne is Thunder.
Yeah.
Charlie is Star.
And so we've just done this little acrobatic trick, and Star, she like leans into my chest,
and I grip him around his waist, and I pulled my body close to his,
and I just say, oh, like when we're close like this, I feel a piercing in my heart.
Is it love?
No. And then I pull out. It's my pocket knife.
And he pulls out this
rubber
knife.
Rubber knife.
That's like, it looks like a cartoon dagger. But it looks real. And he hands it to me, and I immediately reveal that it's fake.
But it's so corny and silly, and it's it's
goofy.
It's just a silly joke, and I love it. But
I think my favorite joke or line in our second show.
Okay,
that is a show 1.
Yeah, that's a show 1.
I think my favorite line in our second show is during the Icarian routine.
Yeah.
So Thunder is lying on his back on the table. We have an acrobatic table. And I'm sitting on his feet. And you say, I'm trying to...
Which one is this?
It's the one where I end up turning around and talking to the
Oh, yeah, just behind every great man, there's a great woman.
And behind every great woman, there's a man staring at her butt. And then very slowly... Thunder rotates
I rotate her
his hips. So I turn around and face an audience member who's staring at my butt because that's where he's sitting. And then I point at him and I go, "Oh, hello!" And he usually, if I pick a good guy, he waves back.
It's a really fun moment.
And then I say, "Oh, it's okay, sir. You have a great seat there. It's 2 for 1," because he's looking at Thunder's butt and my butt.
And a funny thing is, and here's about that joke. Was when we originally did it, instead of slowly turning her, we actually did a trick there. We did, I would give her a half spin, I'd pitch her up and flip her, and so she's flipping the other way, and that killed the joke.
Right. Mm-hmm. By putting a trick in the middle of the joke, it didn't get as strong of a laugh.
It didn't get a laugh.
Where when he just slowly rotates me, and then I can just deliver the line to that audience member, it sinks in a great way where, and that's something that we have to do often too in our writing process is deciding, is this a joke moment, is this a trick moment, or is it a both?
Part of it.
Can you even know that when you're writing? Like how much?
No.
Sometimes.
I mean,
I'm wondering like how many shows do you do a year? Because it seems
Upwards
like you just constantly
tons.
Yeah, and you just constantly are getting feedback to create and recreate.
Yeah,
I mean, I have our writing process is it starts with a choreography. It starts with the tricks, and we'll create a choreography of that, and then what we'll determine is what is the mood of this. Like for example, right now for the show 3, we're going to rewrite a whole new rollabola routine for me, and rollabola is suspense based. it's very much like the audience is like, oh my God, is that guy going to fall and die? And you keep adding more cylinders. Whereas something like partner acrobatics is very dynamic, it's this bouncy feel to it.
Or contortion has no suspense.
Yeah.
Because you're just doing
kind
the
of wow
thing.
factor.
It's wow factor.
And it's also got a gross out factor to it as well.
Yeah.
So it's to go, okay, like taking in consideration like that, like what is the theme of this? And then to go from there is to kind of like start to write jokes that are character based, but also play to that theme of the skill.
And where does it fit in our show? That's a huge thing that we are constantly paying attention to because we do a 45-minute long show. Like we created a routine that has no props and it's purely acro based.
It's dance acrobatics.
So it's very like swingy, lots of movement, very fun. And a lot of the material in it is so much funnier and so much more effective once you already know who Star and Thunder are.
Yeah,
it's like not necessarily introduction material.
We took this routine, and when we first experimented with putting in an audience, we put it very early in the show, and it just wasn't clicking.
It wasn't landing the way we wanted.
But then we moved it back one routine later. Like I did a Diablo routine, which even though I'm doing the solo skill, it's this back and forth dialogue between us. We put it right after that, and suddenly everything just went
so much better.
Boom.
This podcast is brought to you by The Artist Athlete. Did you know that The Artist Athlete is more than just a podcast? It's a growing online resource for students of the aerial arts to deepen their journey to badassery by accessing techniques approved by physical therapists and master coaches in the industry. Our current spotlight is on the fundamentals of aerial alignment, a practical manual for hanging upside down. This online manual is a step-by-step guide. It is complete with photos, videos, and exercises that you can implement immediately to help you gain the strength and awareness you need for an aerial practice that promotes shoulder health and longevity and good posture upright, so you don't walk around like a gorilla. But don't just take my word for it. Here's Circus physical therapist Dr. Jen Crane of Cirque Physio to tell you more.
The fundamentals of aerial alignment is an absolute must-have for every aerialist of every level. I can't even tell you how many shoulder injuries I treat that are a direct result of rushing past the basics in an attempt to get a trick too soon. In the manual, Shannon deconstructs the fundamentals, including the correct muscular engagement to safely arrive in these positions and the rationale for why it matters. Of course, in addition to all of these fabulous pearls of wisdom, the book is also ridiculously fun to read. It's been lovingly garnished with the Shannon humor we all know and love.
Thanks, Jen. Cirque Physio is also featured in the book to give scientific insight into why it all works. Pick up your copy today by going to theartistathlete.com and clicking e-manuals. Listeners of the podcast can get a 10% discount by typing in the offer code PODCAST at checkout. Again, that's theartistathlete.com, offer code PODCAST. Now, back to the show.
Something that we do a lot is we evaluate and then decide what to do to make it better. So in that case, we evaluated the jokes aren't working. Instead of changing the jokes, let's just move the routine.
And then there's times when there's jokes that like you write them and they're like funniest thing ever, and you bounce them off your friends and they just die. And I'll give you a great example. I mean, this is one of our favorites, and I also have a theory of why it doesn't work. But Leah is getting into a contortion box, like she's bending, like stuffed herself in there, and just the line was something along the lines of, "I'll have you know this box has shaped me into the woman that I am today." And then I just look at it to say, "I thought your bra did that."
I know. I think it's funny too.
I know.
And we do it, and people don't know what to do.
Nothing.
They don't. It doesn't get a reaction. We've been doing this joke, like we'll put it in and we'll take it out. We ended up just cutting it because it wasn't getting the reaction we wanted.
I think what it is.
I think it would only work if you had enormous boobs.
So I feel like there are a lot of jokes about boobs that we write that only would work if I had them.
And there's that. But I also think I also think that the characters are such good partners on stage. Like you see how you know, and this is not just true of the characters, it's true of us as people, that we really just have this fondness for each other. And so like out of nowhere, he kind of says just like, makes this like, yeah, your boobs or bleh, like broad joke.
Yeah,
and it's a little bit of a punch.
Color.
And a lot of the humor that we do isn't insulting each other. It's character-based romance. So when we do put in jokes like that, unless it's specifically in a routine that's about conflict, which we have conflict moments.
Oh yeah, they're great.
And they're great. They're really strong because the whole routine or the whole section of that routine is based around conflict, and the tricks are too. So they match, but if we just throw in a punchy joke like that, it's not really our style.
Yeah.
And that's something that we have to recognize too. And something that we do a lot, I try to do it every 2 months, is videotape our show and then watch it ourselves.
Oh yeah,
we'll just sit one night.
That's something
and,
that is
have a beer or two and just watch the show.
What's so great about like today is just like for artists today, like when I was growing up, we didn't have this. Is man, you can do everything on your phone. You can film it, watch it right back.
Yeah,
slow-mo it.
When I was starting out performing in cabarets in the UK, me and rest in peace Rob Torres. Some of you may know him, may not. He was a brilliant circus clown, and we cut our teeth together performing in these crappy little cabarets throughout the UK. And Rob had just had some gig in Japan right before that, where he was able to get this awesome mini DV recorder, really cheap, and we had to. It was this whole process that you would have to go through. It was expensive to videotape something and get feedback. Now it's just instant, and it's on your phone, and it's just like it's changed everything for the better.
And it really allows us to watch ourselves and make quick judgments and changes, and just write the notes that I notice through watching it on my phone, and then I read them before we go on stage the next day. And I'm like, oh God, I shouldn't stand that far to the right. Oh, I need to stand closer to you when we do this. Oh, I don't like how my inflection sounds.
That makes sense because it doesn't sound like have any director or any other
exactly.
eye
We don't
in the
have,
whole
no.
process.
And when we do
you ever have differences on things?
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's
What works?
what works. What the audience likes the best.
Oh, interesting. So it's
And-
almost like the audience is the ultimate.
Yes,
judge
because that's
and
who
jury
we're-
of-
to a certain extent.
To a certain extent, because there are some things where it's just like, no, I like that. Screw them. I'm keeping this in.
Sure. Yeah. But usually,
I was wondering.
Usually
Yeah.
those things are
Unless it's Disney, because then it's like,
right,
oh no.
right. Unless we have a specific criteria of things we can and cannot do. Like when we work for Disney, they have a stricter
Very strict.
kind of.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What can't you do on Disney?
It's
Well, it's about the content.
Well, what
the
can
content.
you do in
No,
Disney?
no.
It's
Let's put it this way. I'll use a joke. One of our jokes as an example is there's family friendly and then there's Disney appropriate, and they're two entirely different levels. There's a joke in the the rollerball routine. I'm going to do the balance on top of a bowling ball. And the joke is, hey, if I mess up this trick, there's a good chance this bowling ball could go shooting out into the audience at 95 miles an hour.
But if you take out 10 of them, you get a strike.
Boom. And that joke will not fly on Disney.
Because it implies audience danger.
Yeah, it implies the audience. There's a threat to the audience.
So we're not
Okay.
allowed to imply...
Disney, when you think, and it's just like, you just know that some person in the audience might say, because that
I
bowling...
felt unsafe.
I felt unsafe and now I need therapy and you owe me, I'm going to sue you for $2 million. I mean, because they're the largest entertainment company in the world. So it's a totally different game of just the level of scrutiny.
But besides that specific example, at the end of the day, because we are an independent act, we have control over what we do and say on stage. So, yeah, when we have a sort of dispute or a back and forth about a line or a trick or...
I mean, typically speaking, we'll give it a go.
Yeah.
We'll say because we
We're
don't...
always worth... It's
not-
always worth it to try.
It's not like Cirque du Soleil where it's like if we wanted to try something new, you'd have to go to this director who then has to go to this committee, who then has to go to that person, then has to go all the way here, and then it then trickles right back down.
Yeah, you really have your own creative freedom.
Yeah, you just go,
and everything.
all right,
And we always-
give it a go.
We really trust in each other's judgment, too. We're the sort of people that if we have an opinion about one direction that our show should go in, it's for a reason. And for a good reason. And we'll back that up and, we're able to pitch it to each other in a way where we can... I can go, oh, okay, I see why you think that we should do
Yeah.
it that way. Let's do
Yeah.
it. Let's try it.
Y'all's communication in general is very impressive. I
Thank
can't
you.
tell you how many times I've been in a gym with like the awkward porter flyer that clearly are so angry at each other.
Oh, we've been in that gym with those people, and they're not working together anymore.
Yeah, and what keeps you from being those people?
Because we don't want to be those people.
Yeah.
Right on.
And
Good, because I don't want to be in a gym with those people.
Yeah, I mean, the worst is when you see in someone trying to do partner acrobatics, and one person is sitting there, like, and you can read their mind when something's not working, and what's going through their mind is, I did my part right. I did my part right. Because it doesn't freaking matter, because it's a we. Either it came together and worked together, or it didn't. And sometimes one person needs more support than the other. And that's just how it is. It's the nature of the beast.
I also feel like we don't put a ton of pressure on ourselves in terms of skills. We went into our careers together wanting to create something that's never been done before, instead of going into our career together trying to compete with other artists who are trying to do the same thing in terms of getting into Cirque or getting into Elwaz or doing another 5-minute hand-to-hand number better than the other 5-minute hand-to-hand number that they just saw. And
Seven Mimi did it all, guys.
Yeah, right.
Throw,
guys.
come on,
So
man,
bad.
throw in the towel, throw in the towel.
they're the best it's ever was.
Yeah, come on, get a costume. Don't throw them in your underwear.
So I think that our originality keeps us going, and we set realistic goals for ourselves.
The thing about our show, the feedback we get a lot of times from audience members, because they've never heard an acrobat talk. With the jokes and then these tricks, it humanizes the tricks. Yeah. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
It's like people, you're no longer just a machine just going bam, 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 bam. With the jokes and the characters, it speaks a language that they understand, which is jokes and characters. Because they don't speak the language of Icarian games.
Right.
They don't speak Diablo. They don't speak, so.
And we have people coming up to us after the show being like, oh my gosh, you remind me of my sister. Star reminds me of me. Star reminds me of me and my boyfriend. And the relatability that you can create when you commit to a character choice of Star or of Thunder being, a funny macho man.
It just gives them a door that they can walk through.
Right. Then when they see Thunder throw Star in the air, they care so much more than if it was just a male-female duo.
But
Are there any drawbacks to having a scripted show? I'm
it's
thinking
a long-ass
is,
show.
Like, what do you mean?
well, I interviewed another duo, a woman from the duo, clowning duo, and their show, they're Argentinians, and
okay.
their show is entirely silent. And they've been all over the world.
Right.
And I wonder how you could play a show that's entirely in English.
Right.
In Saudi Arabia.
We can.
We're limited. I mean,
we're limited to English-speaking countries.
I speak French, and
we've talked about converting the show into French.
The next phase is to translate it into French. So we are limited to.
That was a very French face to make about that.
So
it's just a lot of work.
But yeah. I mean, we're limited to.
And maybe those limitations aren't things you care about. It's just
and we need a reason.
Yeah,
it's one of those things. Like I mean, the English speaking market, all of the United States, Canada, Australia, the UK, pretty much Germany too. But it's just like you can play Scandinavia.
I don't feel limited by it.
Yeah.
I think if anything, it limits us from doing stuff I don't really want to do anyway.
Right on.
It's a very conscious choice that we both made to create a full length show and a long form show. We have a 10-minute routine that we can do. It's also still talking.
But the other thing is that there's nothing wrong with constraints. Being a silent act is a constraint. Yeah, you may be able to play Mexico and then the next week play Japan, but you're limited to, that style of show and that style of theater. It's like they're not going to be able to perform. It's like some of like the college markets and things like that where nobody wants to see a mime clown show. I mean that respectfully and with love, but it's just like, if you can pull it off, do it. Cool.
I don't know if this is confirmed or whatever, but when you're selling a whole show, I feel like I can ask for more money as a whole show.
Oh yeah.
I feel like the market is bigger when I say, okay, yeah, we have 45 minutes. We're going to come in and we are your entertainment for the evening.
We can always scale back.
Yeah.
It's like we do have, we have these different sets that we can do in cabaret lineup shows. That's not a problem.
Easy.
But can someone who has 10 minutes or 6 minutes of cabaret lineup show, can they then suddenly turn around and headline the next night? So in that sense,
I feel very versatile.
Yeah.
And it's funny when we do the occasional time when we do only our 10-minute routine, we get off stage and we're both like that's it.
It's like, that's all we gotta do.
Like,
really?
I'm used to being so tired because we do this long form show, especially at Renaissance festivals where we do 4 shows a day. So it's,
oh my God.
And then 2 days in a row. So it's 8 45-minute shows in a weekend. And we're talking and we're hawking, and in between the shows, I'm out in the lanes telling people to come to the show, and
I'm up on stage ushering them in and getting them to sit.
It's a
What's
lot
the
of
payment
work.
process for Renaissance fairs? You guys get tipped?
Yes, but it's you have a day rate.
Okay.
So that's just a courtesy, but it's good. It's decent, and then you pass the hat. Mm-hmm. And that, by the way, this is also like my background as a street performer. That's a skill unto itself. Is convincing people that, hey, what you just saw, that's worth $20, man. Pay up.
And different Renaissance festivals have different systems. Some are not hat fairs.
Yeah, some you don't have to pass that, and that's great.
And some are hat fairs. And it depends on what kind of stage you're on. So because we are a bigger act where we need more space, we're on bigger stages. That means we have larger audience capacities, which then translates into more money at the end of your show.
But but if you're not, I mean, we're an act that plays big with acrobatics and all these big tricks, this big stuff. Because if you don't play big and you're on a big stage, lots of seats, you won't be able to fill it. So I mean, there is that aspect.
And when you're a big act, you're expected to fill it.
Yeah,
of your responsibility.
If you can't fill it, they will bounce you.
They'll bounce you and they'll put you somewhere else.
They'll put you somewhere else
or just not have you back.
Yeah.
So it is a lot of that responsibility at a Renaissance festival. If you've never been to a Renaissance festival, I recommend you go. They're really, really fun.
Go to a good one though.
And there's most likely one.
I hear they have great
driving
acts
distance.
too.
They do.
Some of them do.
But there's about
that's the other thing.
So just a quick lowdown on that. There's about 35 Renaissance festivals all across the country. They range in size from
just small, like a few vendors with tents and local actors.
And then the largest ones have 40,000 people per day.
Jeez.
Wow.
So they're huge. The ones that we work at are about 10 to 15,000 people per day.
Yeah.
Which is still a lot.
Yeah.
The one we're currently in New York, at the New York Renaissance Festival in Tuxedo,
12,000?
New York, is about 12,000 people per day.
Yeah.
And we're on a stage that maxes out at about 600 to 700
people.
And so part of our responsibility as stage acts is to get 600 to 700 people out of the lanes and seated for 45 minutes, relaxing, sitting, not waiting in line for bathrooms.
Because this is the other thing, is that when there's 12,000 people on this festival site, as much as we are entertainment, we're also crowd control. Because if we've got 600 people in our theater, that's not 600 people out there in the lanes, like Leah said. And then the other thing that we are, for example, like in Colorado, is there's a pub right at the back of our stage.
Yeah.
And they judge us how good we are by how much beer is sold at that pub. So there is that aspect to it as well. I think the thing that we managed to do is we took something that wasn't there before, which is circus and a high level of circus, and introduced it to the Renaissance Fair. Because if we were a couple of jousters, they'd be like, what, we've got like 18 companies to choose from. We were able to adapt circus to fit into that world.
So what's day-to-day life like? Do you guys have a house
Depends
somewhere?
where we are. Nope.
No. That's just not practical at all.
Our home base is in Chicago. We have our legal address and our business address there.
Do you have a P.O. box, or what do you do for that?
My parents' place.
Nice.
Yeah.
They're very supportive. We do Renaissance festivals 4 to 6 months out of the year.
And we have trailers that we live in, just
when we work there. And then we do cruise ships, festivals, military bases, colleges as well.
Yeah, but for cruise ships, you're living on the boat. For colleges, they're putting you up, and the military bases, they're putting you up in hotels. So it's...
And we have a few places around the country we'd like to live when we're not working. And we spent a lot of time in Montreal, in Canada.
That's my favorite.
Yes.
My favorite.
I know, I love
He
Montreal
likes it there.
too.
I like it there too.
I whispered, so I had to whisper
That's
into
okay.
the mic.
Thank you for that.
So it picks up.
So you could be clearly heard.
Yes.
Cool. The last question that I always ask all my guests are, what advice would you give to yourself at the beginning of your career? And I think because it's the two of you, we'll say at the beginning of ACROBATRIX's existence.
Don't buy a VW Westphalia.
Oh God, don't do that.
Don't buy a vintage vehicle
Don't buy a
and
vintage
think you can tour in it.
Yeah, those things are really cool, but they belong in the past.
We made
oh my God.
one of our first large purchases together.
Money pit.
It was a money pit, and we threw all of our money down it, and
But I
it
bet
burned.
it was real cute for a
It was
second.
real
It was
cute.
really
You
cute.
can watch all of the videos we made
It
on
was
our
super-
YouTube channel.
And it was in the
They're
shop
still there.
constantly.
It was not a good
Oh my
financial choice.
God.
I think my biggest piece of advice that I would give to myself, and it has less to do with circus or acrobatics and more to do with just touring, is invest in a good vehicle. If you're going to be a touring performer, invest in a good vehicle that will be a vehicle and not a house.
Yeah.
Pick one.
But if you need both, get a class B RV, but not a vintage one.
Right.
For me, I guess, if you're starting out, set goals and set deadlines. Like, deadlines are really, 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 really important. And this comes as a qualifier. And the qualifier is, when it comes to actual physical skills and tricks, you can be a little bit generous with yourself on those deadlines, because there's things you can learn with your brain that you learn instantly, and then there's things that you learn with your body that will take longer or different, because you have to make the synaptic connections in your brain. You may have to grow more muscle tissue physically, or maybe you need to get more flexible. And these things just take time that you don't always have the choice in. But when it comes to these things, like, really set deadlines for yourself and finish them. Always finish a project. Don't quit halfway through. Even if you're like, I don't think this is going to go anywhere. Finish it. Just finish it and then go, yeah, that sucks, and throw it away. Because there are things, because there are things you'll start and you'll be like, I don't know about this. But it may have opened up doors to, like, the next project that you're going to do.
If nothing else, it taught you what you didn't want to do.
Right.
I can't even tell you how many ideas we've come up with that we've brainstormed out between us and created, and then went, nope.
But the thing is, all artists recycle. Every single one. And I can, I was going through, I just got a new computer, so I had to go through the archives. And there were so many acrobatic sequences and stuff and experiments that we did 3 years ago. And I was like, wow, why did we ditch that? Like, that's something that, okay, I no longer know why we ditched it, but I was like, I'm going to go back to these tapes and re-explore these things, because now we're in the creative process for show 3. So there's things back there. So finish the stuff. That's my thought.
Get a good vehicle, finish the stuff.
Yeah.
Love it. Thanks for coming on the show, guys.
Thanks for having us. Thank you for having us. It's been great.
Of course.
You can find us on our Facebook
all the
page.
plugs.
Yeah,
Yes.
you can find us on our Facebook page at ACROBATRIX.
ACROBATRIX.
And Instagram as well, same name.
ACROBATRIX.
And if you want any merchandise, you can find that on our website.
That's www.acrobatrix.com.
.com.
Sorry, I slipped into French there.
Point.
.com. www.acro.
Thank you. Thanks, Shannon.
Yeah, thank you.
That was my interview with Etienne and Leah from ACROBATRIX, ACROBATRIX. And beyond their amazing chemistry and great tricks and funny jokes, what I love about this duo is they really approach being entertainers as a business. As Leah says in the interview, it's a job on the days when you love it, but it's also a job on the days when you don't love it. And it makes me think of an old friend of mine, what they used to say about people who were going into professional training programs or just discovering circus as people who had kind of a crush on circus, or they would be enamored by it, or they would find this thing and it was the only thing in their lives. And after a while, just like everything else, circus or being a performer, it is a job. And that's when you really realize who loves circus, who does this day in and day out, and who sticks with it no matter what. And Etienne and Leah are definitely people who love performing. But as a self-employed performer, as Leah said, you spend a lot of time on the business side of things, on marketing, on building a fan base, on creating new material, and ensuring the product that you're selling, which is yourself and your skills in your show, is the best that it can possibly be. Leah and Etienne do this by videoing themselves and being very honest with each other. They keep their priorities in order. Their number one priority is being accessible to their audience. So if Etienne thinks a joke is really great, but Leah isn't sold on it, she's open-minded enough to put it in the act and see how the audience responds. I loved hearing about how, in different parts of the country, they would change their material slightly to adapt or communicate better with the people who came to see them. If you want to go see ACROBATRIX live, or if you just want to see an incredibly impressive example of self-employed artists who are really great at marketing and branding, I highly recommend you go to acrobatrix.com or follow them on Instagram, Facebook, or whatever other social media platform fits your tastes. They are acrobatrix everywhere. You can find me online at _artist_athlete on Instagram for training tips and information. You can also go to my website, theartistathlete.com, or on Facebook, The Artist Athlete. If you want to support the podcast, visit patreon.com/theartistathlete to give your donation today. Next week on the podcast, I have Shayna Swanson to talk about her new show, Brave Space. Talk at you then. The Artist Athlete podcast is supported solely by donations from people like you. Here's what some of those people have to say.
Hey there, friends, fans, and enemies. This is Chris Alston, Patreon of the Artist Athlete podcast. Straps artist and lyra performer and acrobat out of Greenville, South Carolina. So, if you're ever passing through, make sure to stop in and see me and my friends. We have a wonderful space, and we'd love to see you.
Hi, my name is Erica Lee. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm an aerialist. I teach performing arts to elementary school during the day and do pole and slings and ropes by night. I really, really like the Artist Athlete podcast because it gives me a lot of circus goals to look forward to. It gives me a lot of insight on what's going on around the world in circus. And that's why I'm Patreon.